think it's about time to start. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. Welcome to the grudge match. I'm going to have a few chairs up here to hit over people's heads as needed, so we're going to see how it goes. We're excited to be with you today and to talk about young adults and dealing with, in particular, the dialogues in committed relationships as people are moving toward marriage. How do you have these types of conversations? And how do you do it in a healthy way that doesn't involve like a 4-second conversation that everyone breathes a sigh of relief after and moves on from? So that's what we're going to get doing here. My name is Adam Moore. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'll be moderating this conversation today. And we're going to give each of the panelists a few minutes to introduce themselves and say something that they'd like to share with you. And then what we're going to do is we have amalgamated the most common questions that get asked around this topic. So we've prepared those questions answered. There's a pretty good chance that we will answer your questions without you even having to ask. But if we get toward the end and there's time left and we haven't answered your questions, then we can consider, passing a microphone around and brave souls can ask questions. And if not, you're welcome to come up. Everybody will be here hanging out and can go into the hall and you can ask the panelists whatever other follow-up questions you have. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with Marcus. Can you hear me? No. Maybe I have to turn it on. There you go.
Is that better? All right. I'm Marcus Vanderholm. I'm a college student. Last year I attended UCAP and I was sitting out in the crowd listening to a panel of young adults talking about a question very similar to this. The reason I'm here basically because some great people asked me to be here. I volunteered with a couple different nonprofit organizations working specifically with issues talking about how do we help couples, how do we help relationships in general maintain strong bonds despite the issues that come in when we talk about pornography. And I don't want to say too much because I like to get to the questions, but if I could leave anything with you to start off with, I would say that while pornography can be very influential in our lives and it can be very powerful in the effects it can have on relationships and the negative effects that it can have, pornography is an object and it's not something that can act for itself. And the people who we're talking about here, the couples and their relationships, you are people who can act. And so you have the power to choose how you react to situations and how you wish to act in situations. You are more powerful than pornography is. Thank you.
So my name is Rachel Denton. I'm a recent graduate from BYU. My undergrad is in education. Currently, I'm working for Fight the New Drug, and I'm involved with a couple other nonprofit organizations. I'm really grateful to be here today. Last year was also my first year at UCAP, and so much has changed, and I've learned so much. And I was thinking about my one message I really wanted to share, and it was this. One of the questions I get asked most frequently is, what do I do when someone tells me that they struggle with pornography? And I've thought a lot about this question, and I want to share a quick experience. About 3 years ago, my brother was diagnosed with cancer, and he was pulled out of school. He went through about 9 months of really grueling chemotherapy. And during that time, my family received tremendous amounts of love and support and compassion and kindness from our family members, from our neighbors, from our friends. And it really made all the difference for my family and for my brother. And around the same time, I had a good friend who told me that he decided to start sharing his experiences with pornography and his pornography addiction with close family and friends. And so I asked him about how that was going for him, and he said, I wish that I never said anything. And I asked him why, and he said, because my friends are all treating me differently. Some of them I can tell are clearly uncomfortable around me. Some of them don't know what to say, and my family has been incredibly shaming to me, and it was just so much better when nobody knew. So I thought a lot about that. And so my answer to what should I do when someone tells me they struggle with pornography is treat it like they just told you that they have been diagnosed with cancer, in the way that there might be an element of shock and surprise, and that's normal and that's okay, but what immediately needs to follow up from you is love, and is compassion, and is kindness, and that they feel that from you, and that you are knocking at their door asking, what can I do to help you? What can I do to support you through this towards recovery?
I'm going to see if I can. You guys hear me okay? If I don't pick it up? Is that all right?
Of course.
So my name is Sean Musil. I am, the CEO and founder of a newer nonprofit called The Freedom Journey. We help those who are impacted by pornography addiction. I'll tell you a little bit about me. I was addicted to porn for 7 years, from 12 to 19, so junior high, high school, first year of college. And I've been walking in freedom for 4.5 years now. So thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. And the best part about being able to walk in freedom for this amount of time is, it's cool to say that I haven't watched porn or masturbated or anything like that in 4.5 years. That's cool to say that. But the coolest part is that I get to walk in integrity, and I am the same person here as I will be at 11 o'clock at night on my phone. That's something that I can't really quantify to you. It's kind of like trying to explain how good a Krispy Kreme donut tastes. Until you taste it, you actually don't truly know what I'm talking about. And so that's the coolest part about being able to walk in freedom. And so I have to say this. We all were asked to do a little intro and share one message with us. So with the Freedom Journey, we just created these new shirts that say "Be You" on them, and that's a central component of what I communicate with the Freedom Journey. We do one-on-one mentoring and teaching and whatnot, and one of the central things we teach is about being yourself, not wearing masks, not changing and adapting to different situations. I mean, it's not bad to adapt, but being yourself at all times in all situations is the most freeing thing that, in my experience, I've ever done. I used to be really good at wearing masks, right? I was super good when I was around like my Christian group. I was just like, I had a lot of parents at my church asking me to date their daughters, right? Like I was really good in that in that aspect of people really looked up to me, but behind closed doors I was somebody different. Does that make sense? So one of the central components that we talk about is just being yourself at all times and walking in consistency, also known as integrity. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Musil, and I'm Sean's wife here. I do not actually work for a nonprofit or help in any sense that way. It is my first year at UCAP. I just work a normal job. I work in the event industry, and I am just here to give the women and men, any people who are possibly wanting to get married or in a marriage, that there is hope, and that even though Sean had struggled with his pornography addiction for some time, that you can work through that and our relationship and how that looks like for us now. So yeah, I just have a message of hope for everyone who maybe is struggling or in their marriage or anything like that. So thanks.
All right, now that we've got our panelists introduced, we're going to get down with the questions here. So I'm going to read a question, and we'll let them fight over who's going to answer it and in what order. So this will be interesting. We'll see if they can collaborate. So first question is, when do I talk to someone I'm interested in, like this is dating-wise, right, about pornography? Before we even start dating, when we're exclusive, engaged, what factors do I take into consideration as to when would be the best time? Okay, this is an extremely important question. So Rachel looks like she wants to start.
Okay. I don't like hunching over. Okay. So that's kind of a tough question because there's no solid answer, like this is exactly the time when you do it. Because it really depends on where you are emotionally in the relationship. At the beginning of a relationship, you're sharing information about yourself that you're comfortable with, that you share with most people. And then as the relationship progresses, that's when you start to share more serious things about yourself or just more personal things that have happened. And so Even though someone might have good intentions, asking too early can really be a bad thing, especially before trust and commitment have been built in that relationship. Because that can come across as you are trying to quickly weed through people and like, nope, next one, instead of taking the time to actually getting to know who they are as a person. And for those who do struggle with pornography, when they get asked too early, it creates feelings of shame and like, I don't want to tell them. They're not gonna want to date me if I tell them the truth. So they may even not be totally honest in their response to protect their own privacy. And they may say something like, well, I used to struggle in high school, but I haven't since then. Hasn't been a big problem, when in reality they're still looking at pornography very regularly. But it's also, you also have to make sure you're not sharing too late or asking too late, because at that point, if you're like already engaged or if you are already planning a future together, there's a whole other emotional element to the relationship that it may make it hard to see things clearly, and you may kind of brush the problem under a rug, like, oh, it's not as big of a deal. So I think that there are a couple things to look for in the relationship to know when you're ready to talk about pornography, and one of them is that you truly, truly care about each other, and that you trust each other to be sensitive and kind and respectful, and that you appreciate the good things about each other. But I think the number one thing in your relationship is if you are already having these types of conversations about other things, other personal things that have happened in your past, things that are going on with you right now, that's a good indication that pornography could be brought up. And the last thing I want to add is that also this is not a one-time conversation. It's never going to be like, okay, we talked about it, we're good, okay. This is something that you should be talking about throughout the entire relationship, throughout the entire marriage, whether or not either of you actually struggle with pornography.
Yeah, I'll talk on that too. So my view on this is with relationships, I think you have negotiables and non-negotiables for somebody that you're looking for in dating. And so I think it's helpful to clarify those things. But what that looks like, I love what you said, Rachel, about continuing in that conversation. So yeah, sure, I haven't watched porn in 4.5 years, but Alex receives an email every day of every website I visit on every device still. That's a level of accountability that we continue even to this day, because I look at recovery as this lifelong road that no matter how far you are down it, the ditch is just to the right. Right? No matter if I'm driving here to California, no matter how far I am down that drive, just because I've driven 10 hours, I can't allow that 10 hours to propel me the next 2. I have to be aware of the whole length of the journey, right? So for Alex and I, what this looked like was I had struggled with pornography before we met, and I decided to take 1 year off of dating. I decided to take a year off of dating and really focus on this issue and really try to clean up that and really just try to become a man who would attract this caliber of a woman, basically. So some of the things that I did is we met, of course, like halfway through that 1 year of not dating, like that would happen, right? So we met halfway through, and actually a month before I was about to end that year, I said, hey, can I just, we went to Denny's, how romantic, right? And I said, I just want to talk, and I was just intentional and just shared that I was like, hey, I think you're really cool. I could see myself being with you, I just kind of shared, like, was really open. And one of the things I shared is, look, I have a past with pornography. At that point, I hadn't watched porn for 7 months, and so, but I was very upfront about that, and I said, because I wanted her to want to date me, not some false portrayal of me, right? And part of me is like if you're going to be with me, that means you get the good and the bad, right? So I didn't want to just portray the good things of me. I was very open, and I said, look, this is a part of my past, and it's been 7 months, but it's an everyday thing, right? It's been 7 months since I watched this, but it's something I continue to grow in. So I just went brutally honest, right? I mean, we weren't even dating yet, and I was like, hey, this is part of my life. Anyways, it worked out. So,
Yeah.
anyways.
And it can work out for you too. All right, very good. Anyone else have anything to add to that, or should we move on to the next question? I think we're ready for the next question. All right. These are really good questions. They're excellent. Okay, here we go. My fear about telling the man or woman that I'm dating, because we know that women struggle with pornography too. This is not a male exclusive behavior. My fear about telling the person that I'm dating about my struggles with pornography is that it's going to hurt the other person. And I don't want to do that. What advice do you have?
That's a wonderful question, and I think part of the answer is a reality that it's probably going to at least shock the other person or hurt them in some way. Rachel talked about treating it like you would treat cancer. We can't necessarily control initial emotional reactions, and so recognizing that in itself can be, to a degree, empowering when we're preparing to tell someone about our past behavior, whether it's 2 years in the past or 2 days in the past. We need to recognize that we can't always control. In fact, we can never control what someone else is feeling. However, there are certain things we can do, and Sean and Rachel already talked about that in the way we need to prepare in our relationships. Recognizing if someone's at the point where they've maybe earned that trust in our relationship, or we're prepared to entrust in them something like that. But I would just add that you can't get very far on fear in general. And so there really is a leap of faith that you have to make when it comes to talking to anyone about anything that is potentially shameful. And there's a possibility that it's not going to go well. But if you prepare, like we talked about, and if you have that degree of trust already in that relationship, then you can have a degree of confidence with you that maybe there will be a tough initial reaction, but it's going to be okay. If you love each other, it's going to be okay.
I want to add to that. That's good. I think you have to, so the question was, if I'm struggling, I'm afraid to tell her because I think I'm going to hurt her. I think you have to weigh out the hurt. Because what's like moderate pain now, likely it is going to be a hard, difficult conversation on both your ends. But let's scenario play this. Let's role play this. So let's say you continue in your relationship, you get more connected, more trusting of each other, you get further down maybe to engagement or marriage, and then you tell her. That's going to be likely more painful than telling her now. I think moderate pain now is better than severe pain later.
Any other thoughts on that topic? The main reason I see couples in my office are because of this exact issue is something was glossed over pre-marriage, like, oh, well, that's in the past, so I don't have to say it, so I'm sure it won't be a problem in the future since I have really good wishful thinking, and so everything should be fine. And then 10 years into the marriage, it's discovered that not only is this happening in the marriage, but there's this entire history that the spouse was not aware of prior. It creates a huge trauma for a lot of people. Like, you're not the person I thought you were. So it's absolutely better. This is about surrendering the outcome of your life. You can't control whether someone's going to stay with you. You just can't, even if you've been married 20 years. So honesty is actually the best policy, as it turns out. Good. Let's go to question number 3. Question number 3 is, I know I need to have this conversation with my boyfriend, girlfriend, but I don't know how. Okay, so this is a person saying, I want to ask, I'm kind of to the point in the relationship where I feel really committed, and I want to say, do you have a history of pornography use? But I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to start the conversation. I don't even know what types of questions to ask or what's appropriate. Let's speak to what this dialogue would actually look like, how this conversation is going to go, what types of questions to ask, what types of things to say.
Yeah, well, one thing I also just kind of want to put out there is that guys should absolutely be asking girls too. When was the last time you looked at pornography? When is the last time that you came across it? How long ago? I mean, it's just as important for guys to be asking girls. But kind of a thought I had on this is it really helps when at the beginning, no matter what, this is going to be a tough conversation to have for the first time. This is a tough topic, and you can't like beat around the bush. You just kind of got to go for it. But one thing that I think is really helpful is to first share your love and respect for that person that you are with, and say, I really care about you, or you mean so much to me, or you make me so happy. And I know that this is a really big issue, and it might be a little uncomfortable to talk about, but how would you feel about if we discussed pornography? And even if you are feelings like I'm scared, tell them that. Just say, I'm kind of worried to bring this up with you, and I feel anxious that you might think that I'm accusing you, but I would like to talk about this. And just be honest about how you're feeling, even about talking about pornography.
And I would like just to add to what Rachel was just saying, that prepare beforehand. Don't go in and say, I want to talk about pornography today. Let's talk about it right now. Because if you're the person who's not using pornography and you suspect that your significant other is, then if you jump on them like that, chances are you're going to get a negative response or an incomplete response. So prepare. If you're I would add that it's even better if you're the person who's struggling with pornography. It's even better if it comes from you initially. But that's not always the case. Either way, prepare your significant other. Say, if you already have a pattern of conversations, even if you don't, I would like to talk about this at some point with you. Could we do it at this time? It gives you both time to think about it. It gives you time to prepare. And then, once again, recognizing that initial conversation, if you can't talk about everything the very first time, don't do it. Say, that's all I can talk about right now, but could we talk about this again in a week or in a couple weeks? And that becomes a pattern for you.
So I think that maybe I'll just put this. I think that in relationships, like Rachel said, you do want to come to a point where you feel comfortable and safe to open up about something like this. And I think in relationships, we can all get to that point. We all can know when that point is, when you realize that your relationship is becoming more serious. And I think that when you reach that point of your relationship, that you can talk to your significant other about pornography. But I feel that for the person who is receiving that information, for the person who doesn't know how to handle someone opening up about their pornography addiction, some advice that Sean had given me, because I was definitely ignorant to this, about pornography. It just wasn't talked about in my house growing up. It never seemed really to be an issue to me. It was something that I never talked about in my past relationships. So I almost didn't know how to handle what he was telling me. And I think as women, I think that we can be insecure sometimes. Obviously, we all have our own struggles. I know as men, they can be insecure as well. And I think instead of acting on insecurity with someone telling you about it, is really being their friend. Just coming at it as if a friend was telling you, because we definitely react differently to our friend sometimes than we do to our significant other. And I think just remembering to respond as a friend would respond is as hard as it is. So I just think responding as a friend.
Can I add one thing? I'm sorry.
How dare you add one thing?
How dare, I know. I think it's good. I think it's dynamite. So I'm sorry, I had to add this. Well, we have times where where I'll say to Alex, especially if it's a really emotional thing like that, I'll say okay, I need to talk to you as a friend for a minute. And then we talk as a friend in a conversation, as opposed to there's times when most of the time we're talking as spouses, but there's situations where we just have, like she said, have to talk as friends. But here's what I wanted to say. This is short. This is good. If you find yourself in the situation where you want to talk about it, I have a really good out for you in a like really practical thing. Say this. Hey, I was at this conference on Saturday. And we learned about how big of a deal pornography is. And I want the best for our relationship. And so I'm just, I just want to have an open, honest conversation. I didn't realize it affected so many people, so even really great people. And so at this conference, I learned a lot of great things. And so I was wondering if this is something that we could talk about. And I want you to know that if you do struggle with it, this is a safe place and we can have a safe conversation about this. And I'm with you and we're going to find some help.
That was really good, Sean. I do want to add, because here the recommendation, and it's absolutely accurate, is to respond in love, commitment, concern. It's okay to be upset too. Please feel free to give yourselves full permission to be angry, frustrated, disappointed, sad, confused, all of that kind of stuff. The moment you start evaluating your emotions and saying, well, I probably shouldn't feel this way, you're going to get into some trouble there, because then you're saying, well, only some of my emotions are appropriate. And that's actually what drives a lot of people into addiction, is saying, well, none of these emotions are appropriate, so I need a way to cope and to numb out. So please make sure that whether you're the person sharing about your own history or receiving information, that it's okay to say, I'm kind of having a hard time. My emotions are kind of running wild here. I think I may need a little break. I need to figure out how to deal with this and find some safe people to share with. That, maybe we can have that question come up in a few minutes. This will be an unprepared question, but who do I talk to? Is it okay to talk to my parents? That kind of stuff. Let's just do that now. They're gonna be shooting completely from the hip. It's gonna be super great. Who can you talk to? Because here's the deal, friends. You've got the other person's privacy, which they absolutely have a right to. They didn't necessarily give you permission to go just tell whoever you wanted about the information they just privately shared with you. But you also shouldn't necessarily be obligated to keep difficult emotions to yourself and have no one to share with except this person with whom you're now having maybe a little bit of a difficult dialogue. So thoughts, again, this is from the hip, so we're going to see how this goes. Thoughts on who you share with and how you manage that process. Take your time.
I want to jump in. One of the things that I share in our 6-week mentoring program that we do with the Freedom Journey is, I think there's really 3 main criteria to find somebody to share about with this issue, and I think the rest is teachable. I think the first criteria is you have to find somebody that is in your community, somebody that you see on a fairly regular basis. You have to find somebody that cares about you. I think that's extremely important. And the third component is somebody that's willing to walk through this process with you. I think if you can find those 3 things, you can get enough help. But you guys know here there's a plethora of resources here, and so there's not a shortage of that. You find those 3 things in somebody. I think so often we look over the people that are closest to us that could help us out. We're looking for, I wish I had Clay Olson as my next door neighbor from Fight the New Drug, so I could talk about porn with him, right? Like, that'd be cool, but there's somebody in your community that, 1, cares about you, that 2, in your community, probably should be older than you, I would say, to some degree, but 3, just that they're willing to walk through this process with you. I think if you find those 3 things, I think the rest is teachable.
I think that's a great criteria that Sean just went over. And who that person is going to vary depending on your situation. I think one thing that can help you is the person who in this couple relationship, one person's using pornography, one person isn't. One person is disclosing, one person is hurting right now. In fact, both people are hurting. And so just talking about it beforehand, look, I'm probably going to need to talk to some people about this. If you let the other person know that, that can lessen for them the shame and just knowing that they can prepare themselves now. Okay, other people are going to know about this now too. This is hard, but it's going to help them. I was that third party about 6 months ago. A friend of mine came to me and said that her boyfriend had just told her about his pornography use, and she had talked to her mom, and she talked to her dad, and she wanted to talk to me because she knew I knew a little bit about this. If you ever are that third party, just remember that you're dealing with human beings. And I think that's a good rule for everyone. We're dealing with human beings who are not one-dimensional or two-dimensional. We are deep and we are complex, and we are a lot more than our pornography history. So just remember that.
I'll throw 2 or 3 cents in there myself. How about that? So most likely you're going to want to tell a parent. Most people, prior to marriage, their main confidants, other than maybe friends, are still their parents. In fact, most people don't start to really differentiate from their parents until they're early to mid-30s. So if you still really care about what your parents think about you, that's normal. It's okay. I was going to tell a story. It was going to be pointless, so never mind. All right. There's too much information about my life and my parents. So, but you're going to probably want to tell a parent. And remember, this is a relationship that you're hoping is going to turn into a marriage potentially, right? This is part of the reason you're having this dialogue. If you're just hanging out and going bowling regularly and you have no plan, this is probably an irrelevant conversation to have, if, on some level. But if you're very serious about the relationship, you need to start the relationship on the right foot, and that is not, hey, as soon as one of us gets upset, we immediately run to our parents and tattle on the other person, because that will cause huge problems in your marriage later. So really a good starting point is to say, hey, this is a burden that I'm going to struggle to carry on my own. I don't think I can do it, and you've obviously been carrying this on your own for a while, and it's not working out. Can we have a conversation, maybe not right now, but maybe in a few days, about who we can start to talk about being comfortable together, sharing with. Now, maybe you don't go. Sometimes if the relationship's far enough along, you would go together. I've seen people do that all the time. They go together to both sets of parents and say, here's what's going on. We need your support. If it's not far enough along that you would know the other person's parents yet, then, of course the person's going to say, I'd really rather your parents not know. I'd like them to like me. And before we meet, I don't know that I want them to know that about me. Hi, this is my boyfriend. He looks at porn, or whatever. So that's a conversation that I think you should have as a couple and say, how and when and with whom are we going to have this conversation? If you can do that, then you've got a beautiful start to your relationship. If the other person says, no, you cannot tell anyone, this is a secret, you must keep it, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm very concerned about the status of that relationship, because that's a person who's asking you to keep secrets to protect them by throwing yourself under the bus. That's not a great start of a marriage, so be very cautious about that. Okay, anything else on that? We can move on to the next question. This is going great. I'm really enjoying this. Okay, next question. If I've shared my past pornography use with a religious or church leader and it's no longer an issue, do I really need to tell someone that I'm dating about my past behaviors? Can't I just leave it in the past, right? Can't I just be forgiven and move on? This is a good question. All right, what do we got, friends?
Okay,
Rachel's feeling strong about this.
yeah, I do. Absolutely, yes. Because any time that you minimize a porn addiction or pornography use, even if it's in the past, will 100%, I promise you, lead to issues later on down in the marriage or in the relationship. And I think that because this question is asked is because a lot of us don't understand the difference between abstinence and recovery from pornography. Abstinence is when we go for a period of time without looking at pornography, and that might be like, a week, a month, a year, 2 years. That is abstinence, and that's definitely achievable for a while, but a relapse is 95% chance going to happen at least some point. So recovery, though, on the other hand, is entirely possible, but it's a long journey, and a lot of therapists say that it may take 1 to 2 years of consistent work to achieve full recovery. And I'm not just talking about not looking at it. I'm talking about going to therapy. And but the biggest thing is disclosing with others and being transparent about your struggles and with pornography. And this requires vulnerability and being open and sharing, of course, with appropriate people, your struggles or where you're struggling with pornography. And so if you think, I don't need to tell the person I'm dating because that was a long time ago, you are not in recovery then, because you need to be completely transparent, especially in a relationship like that, in order for you to stay in recovery. Because if you don't, it will for sure later on down the road lead to isolation and shame and guilt.
Mic drop. Okay. Anyone else want to share on this in the
I'll add
past?
just a
All
little
right,
bit.
go ahead, Marcus.
I think Rachel covered that really well. But just to add, we've been talking about having patterns of trust in your relationship and patterns of disclosure that can go well beyond pornography use. If you used to be an alcoholic, you're probably going to be willing to tell someone that who you're thinking about marrying, even if you were an alcoholic 10 years ago. And surprisingly, in our culture, it's a lot less shameful to have been an alcoholic than to have been a porn addict. But you still tell them. And so this is a part of who you are. No matter how long ago it was in the past, your behavior with pornography is part of who you are. And so if you want someone to love you for who you are, then you're going to share all of you at one point with them. So just, be willing to acknowledge the shame, but go ahead and tell them. Tell them about your behavior. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Should we do a hard question now? Let's do a hard question. Because those are all easy questions. All right, here's a hard question. You're about to ask somebody, you're going to say, can you please disclose to me your history of pornography use so that, I have a certain level of confidence that we have full honesty going on in the relationship. How do I know they're going to tell me the truth? How can I trust that what I'm getting is not just some story they made up to make sure I don't get upset and leave? Do I need to do a polygraph right before marriage? Like, what do I need to do? No. What do I need to do to feel confident that I'm getting the full story? This is a tough one, so let's see what we've got, friends.
I'm excited about this one.
All
Can you
right.
talk? Okay, so how do I know that anything they say is true? Period, whether it's about porn or not, right? I think with relationships, there's a certain level of risk. And I think that's what I don't know, not to get too cheesy here, but I think that's what makes love love. Like, for example, Alex, my wife, could hurt me more than anybody in this room could because she has my heart, right? There's a level of risk and trust that I have in her. But she can also make me feel better than anybody in this room could at the same time, right? So I think that's a component of love is there's always a measure of risk. And so, Adam, I love the question. It's like, how do I know if they're being honest? You don't. You
Dun,
don't. I mean,
dun, dun.
that's so simple, right? Like I'm not trying to oversimplify this. It's like you don't, and that is a component of relationship is risk. If there's no risk, it wouldn't be love, right? Like this is drastic. Okay, if somebody was proposing to another person and I don't know, had a gun to their head. This is drastic. And so they basically they had to say yes, right? That wouldn't be love because there was never the chance to say no.
That was really good. Mike slide.
I'll just add one thing. At my job, I teach people how to ask questions that will allow the person they're talking to open up and share parts of their past. And what I teach my representatives, I teach them, okay, so before you are going to ask questions and hope someone else opens up something deep from their past to you, share yourself first. So like Sean said, you don't know if they're being honest, but there's a much greater likelihood of them being honest if you're willing to be honest about yourself and share about yourself.
Very good. I think they passed. That was excellent. Alex, you got something?
It's easier just to hold it. I think that what they said is right. You might not always know initially if they're being honest, but I do believe that the truth does always come out. It might not initially, but I think maybe down the road once you've built a stronger relationship, or maybe there's more trust in the relationship, they might be more honest. And I think that we have to be okay if initially the truth isn't like told in the beginning. I work with youth kids, and they never tell me the truth. When I ask them things, they always lie, or just don't tell me fully. They'll tell me like half the bad thing they did and maybe not the other half. But eventually when they need me and they need my support and they need my advice, it will come out. And I can't be upset at them. I have to acknowledge that they just told me the truth. And I think that's important even in this situation is if they don't initially tell you at first, I don't know what's going on, then I think just be open to being okay if they tell you the truth later on.
Very good.
I have a one-liner for that. Oh, check 1, 3. Okay. I have a one-liner for that, and that's a half truth is also a half lie.
Oh, snap. All right, I like that. You want, I'm debating whether I should teach you a magical therapy trick that you can use. Should I? All right, I'll do it. This is really good. Oh man, this works in so many contexts. Your parenting will forever be different from here, everything. So what you do is you say, they share some information with you, and then you say something like this. Because what happens is the moment you share information and you put a .com on the end, and then after that, it's like, uh-oh, if I tell you something more, then you're going to assume I'm a liar because I didn't tell you that in the first place, and I don't want to be a liar, so now I have to commit to whatever I have not shared with you and just keep not sharing it so I can be honest. Great logic. But what you can say to the other person is, hey, thank you so much for sharing with me. I do this all the time with my clients. Thank you so much for sharing with me. After you leave here, there's a pretty good chance, because human memory is really fallible, that you're going to remember something that you just forgot to tell me, even if they were hiding it intentionally. You forgot. You forgot to tell me this information, or maybe you weren't ready to say it at the time. So I'll tell you what, free pass, you come back anytime and you can update your story with me, and we're good. I'll just assume that you were not quite ready in that moment to tell me, or that you were kind of amping up, or that you honestly forgot about that. 100% of the time that I tell people that, they come back and tell me more. 100% of the time, because it's freedom, permission, that honesty doesn't stop at the first conversation, okay? And that I don't have to be honest about everything immediately, because I'm still testing the waters to know if I can trust you. Are you going to flip out? Are you going to jump out of a moving car after I tell you? What's going to happen? Don't do it in a moving car. And so it's freedom to do that, and that really opens the dialogue up. So that will help. Okay, good. Let's see what else we have. All right, so you're dating somebody, and let's say they're struggling right now with pornography. They're being honest. They're saying, hey, you know what? I'm still having some slips, some relapses. I'm struggling. I'm trying to do better, but you know what? I'm committed to telling you the truth, even if I'm having a hard time. Question is, it's hard to know how long I should wait for things to get better. What's a good amount of time that someone should be away from using pornography, or sober, or abstinent, or whatever you want to use, before pursuing a relationship, or perhaps for getting engaged or getting married? Is there a time frame you should wait? This question gets asked a lot. Also a tough one. Here we go.
Okay. So a lot of experts recommend that you wait 1 solid year of recovery before making a serious commitment. And I'm not talking about dating them, but a serious commitment such as becoming engaged. Because once you get engaged and you're planning a future together, kind of like what I said before, that is where emotions come in. And you were very emotionally invested in this person and tied to this person. And your thinking can become muddled. And so just don't let your emotions confuse you, I think is another thing. Because dating someone or marrying someone who is currently really struggling with pornography can have very serious consequences for both you and that person. Something else I kind of want to throw in that I think is also really important is that marriage does not cure a porn addiction. A lot of people think once I am able to be sexually intimate with my partner, I won't have a need to look at pornography anymore. But that cannot be farther than truth. It will escalate the problem, and it will cause more problems down the road. So Really, I think it's wise to seek counsel from a trusted advisor, someone who knows the both of you and can work with the both of you and help you kind of decide where you are in your relationship.
Other thoughts on that topic?
I think we have a guest. You can't see in the back, there's a little girl up here. So this is going to be purely anecdotal. So this is just from my experience personally, but also from our 6-week mentoring program that I do. I think 6 months is a pretty decent amount of time. When I'm talking with guys and we kind of go through their history, one of the things I'll ask him is, what's the longest that you have ever not watched porn, right? What was your longest streak, so to speak? And it's super common for it to be anywhere from 3 weeks to 2 months. That's for the most part, for however long they've struggled with porn, it's usually within that range. I think 6 months allows for some good healing in the brain, like neuroscience-wise, from the research that I understand for long-term effective brain change. Go to William Struthers' brain neuroscience thing next breakout session, and he's the expert on it, not myself. But from what I understand, it's about 2 to 5 years for long-term effective change within the brain. And so, anyways, I think 6 months. Once again, purely anecdotal from my experience, has been a solid amount of time for my guys to really develop a firm grasp on some things, and I've noticed that the likelihood of them falling after the six months decreases quite a bit, whereas it's typically 1 month or 2 month. They have still at that point, there's a high potential for them to still fall. So, in short, I think 6 months is a good amount of time.
Okay, now ready for this one? So this is rather interesting. Those of you who have ever been in love before know about infatuation, which is completely mind-altering, and people get rather irrational when they're infatuated. Okay, and they start doing crazy things like getting married and stuff. And so, so I'll tell you what I'm seeing typically. See a lot of premarital couples come in, and by the time two people decide they're going to come in for some counseling, prior to marriage, they're pretty committed. You don't decide to do therapy together, after the third date. Like, bowling or therapy? What do you want to do next Thursday? So what I'm seeing is that people are by the time they're saying, hey, let's do this, they get pretty committed. I don't typically see people waiting. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't hold off and take some deep breaths and do some waiting. I think people need to do probably some more waiting than they usually do. However, I just don't see it happening very often. So if you get infatuated and you remember anything about this conference, my recommendation is that if you're not going to wait a period of time, so if you're not like, okay, look, we need 6 months of sobriety or a year of sobriety or whatever, if you're not going to do that, what you need to do instead is put together a recovery process that you're doing before even that you get married, okay? So, and you're working on the process. You can see my next presentation in the next hour if you want to learn about that. Anyway, so you're working on this process together, and you're saying, let's do this, because this is a demonstration of commitment to recovery, okay? So if you don't have X number of months of sobriety, but I can at least see your commitment level to the work of recovery, so that I know we can make a nice smooth transition in, rather than just saying, well, I'm sure it'll be fine. So just in case you get infatuated, remember that. All right. And is it 10:15 that this ends? Is that accurate? 11:15. Or whatever time. We're going to go back in time, my friends. All right. This is a good one. This is related to the previous question, a previous question. My parents don't like that my significant other struggles off and on with pornography. They think I should get out of the relationship right away, but this person has a lot of potential and they're working really hard. Should I listen to my parents' advice, or should I ignore them? It's so hard to know what to do. Okay, another tough one. Go team.
Okay. Let me address one part of that question first, and it's about potential. Dating somebody for their potential is like subconsciously communicating, I'm with you because of who you can be. Rather than dating them for who they are and saying, I like you because of who you are. Right? I think that's a key differential. I don't want to be liked for who I can be. Right? I don't think any of us would agree. I don't think any of us would say we would like that. We want to be liked for who we are. So I actually think it's an awesome question, and my first reaction is, what are like your thoughts first? Because if you don't want to be in this relationship, because the question was like, should I talk with my parents? My parents are saying they don't like that he struggles with this. Well, start with you, because if you don't like that he struggles with it, then you could just cut it right there. You need to talk to your parents about it, right? So I think our own voices are overlooked, and so I think being self-aware is super important. What are your views, your convictions, your beliefs on this? You need to clarify those and identify those. Kind of like how I said at the beginning, you need to have negotiables and non-negotiables in relationships. You need to clarify what those are for you. And so if that's a non-negotiable for you, and then now you discover that, maybe there needs to be a separation for a time until that person can clarify this issue. So my thoughts are, if it's something that you're okay with, then you need to have a sit-down conversation with your parents and say, here's my viewpoints and here's why I believe this, here's why I think this, here's why I want to continue this relationship. And you need to, I know parental relationships are, they vary according to every person, but sometimes can be good and sometimes bad, right? So, you just have to wait out with your situation to, as best as you can, have a civil conversation on this and to really hear out both sides. Here's what I think, let me hear what you guys think, and really as best as you can together to come to a conclusion.
Yeah, I would. I think Sean made a great point that don't let the third party be your determining factor of what you're going to do. And let's say you do make your decision that, okay, I love this person, now I'm going to talk to my parents about this issue, and they don't like it, and they think that I should break up with them. If you personally come to the conclusion that you need to end a relationship or put a relationship on hold because of pornography behavior, then don't go to that person and say, this is what my parents want me to do. You will cause more harm to that person's recovery than you could have in any other way, basically. And if a relationship, has to be on pause because of pornography, we need to make sure that that pause does not detract from the love and the compassion that we show.
And I don't know your parents, if they're healthy or not, but one time when I was a teenager, I was really mad. I was in a fight with my dad. I was folding up a plastic hanger because I was a teenager, and I was just, bending it in half. And my dad said really calmly, you're going to hit yourself in the face with that thing, right? And I was like, whatever, dude. And then 3 seconds later, I hit myself in the face with it. So don't underestimate the additional 25 years of experience that your parents may have on you. At least listen to what they have to say. Remember, they're not doing it because they dislike you. They care about you. They may understand some things that you don't see yet. So absolutely make your own choice. You must. But if your parents have something wise to say, at least hear them out. I think that's mission critical. This is the dad in me talking right now. I'm talking to my kids. Please don't ignore me. All right. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. We appreciate the panel. Let's give them a round of applause.